Welcome to the Chicks on the Right podcast. We are very, very, very excited to have with us a longtime friend of the Chicks on the Right show. He is a branding expert. He is also a fellow fan of Robbie Williams, which I appreciate.
Oh,
Amy Jo, not so much.
I know, my goodness. You too. His
name is Eitan Chatayat. His name is Eitan Chatayat, and he is a proud Israeli Jew who we first learned about because of an amazing piece that he wrote and that we shared on our website called Shalom Mother Effer. Eitan, it's so great to have you.
I'm so happy to be here, and genuinely and sincerely, I'm smiling because it's just really nice to see you. Honestly, I know we're talking about some serious stuff, but it's just like on a
nice to see you
human, personal level. It's just lovely to see you, and thank you for having me. Thank
you. Of course. So we want you to tell our audience the reason that you wanted to talk to us. And it's important because we've been talking about what's happening on college campuses for weeks now. We've been talking about Israel and the Gaza situation since obviously October 7th and even before that, with horror, as obviously you know. And we are obviously like-minded with you about what's happening on college campuses, but we wanted you to address that from the perspective of being a Jew from Israel who is seeing this happen that's so reminiscent of history that should not ever repeat itself.
Yeah, well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. A lot of, let's say, public platforms have been reaching out to me to speak. And I actually reached out to you in full transparency because I wanted to speak to you specifically because of your audience. It's I imagine it's not a predominantly Jewish audience, although I'm sure that there are many Jewish people that follow you. I think that what's very, very important for your audience to understand here in the States is, and you guys have been talking about this, look, we might differ in terms of our political dispositions. And that's fine. And I think that's what democracy is, and it's a beautiful thing. There's a way to have dialogue. But what is happening right now in the world, and specifically in America, has nothing to do with Israel and the Palestinians. And I know that for some people who don't have that knowledge, that might be a very, very difficult thing to comprehend. And I get it, and I understand. But there is an active effort which is planned and organized and funded and strategic that has been going on for a long time, and I don't mean 6 months and I don't mean a year, to basically impose an ideology on Western civilization, and America represents a Western civilization. And you are now seeing it come into fruition. The reason why I reached out to you when I did is because this is a critical time. This is a tipping point. We are on the precipice of disaster unless the middle ground not just starts understanding this, but starts speaking up and putting pressure on your leaders to make a change and to bring in law and order and civil rights across the board. And that is the reason why I wanted to get on this call with your viewers. It's not about Trump. It's not about Biden. It's not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's not about Bibi Netanyahu or Gantz or Lapid in Israel, left, center, or right. This is a fight against an ideology that has now infiltrated your homeland in a very, very real way. And I don't think that people understand what might change in the next 10 years if they don't act now.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I think that a lot of people don't understand that. I will push back though and say that I when it comes to politics, I do believe that a lot of the people that are pushing back, most of the people that are pushing back on this horrific indoctrination and ideology that has permeated our culture are people on the right. And then it's the people on the left that are apologizing for it. And it's a really weird dichotomy that you see in our country. And I don't understand, like, there are Jewish people that are living in America that are remaining silent. And possibly, I think that has to do with the fact that they are part of the Democrat Party, and the Democrats are the ones who are the ones apologizing for it, that are like making excuses and say, well, it's freedom of speech on college campuses and stuff like that, which I just find abhorrent. I just don't, because you're right. I think politics shouldn't play a part in it. I think it should be a humanity issue that we're talking about, and not a political issue. But it has become political, which is crazy to me.
I'll give you an example of Israel. First of all, I agree with you, but it doesn't matter right now. Let's put that to the side. I know it's difficult for you to put to the side, but let's put it to the side.
Yeah.
I've never voted for Netanyahu in my life. He's on the right wing in Israel. It's a different type of right wing than in America. But I'm not Bibi Netanyahu fan. But in my country, on October the 7th, we woke up to basically a massacre. It was a genocide, the equivalent of around 40,000 Americans being not just killed, but raped, beheaded, burnt alive, gang raped. There was pedophiles, also pedophile behavior, and people were massacred in the most horrific way ever. And it happened because Hamas, Islamic radicals, crossed over our border and perpetrated this awful act. Now, a lot of the people that were killed, as many of your viewers might know, but I want to remind them, were not on the right. They were actually on the left. Peace activists, around 400 people, young people, were massacred at a dance party, at a rave. A lot of the people living around Gaza, in which there was no Israeli presence, were people who had relationships with the Gazans, who were trying to coexist. People from Gaza were coming in and out, not Israelis going into Gaza and out, but Gazans were coming in and out to work in Israel, and the Israelis were establishing relationships. Now, a lot of us found out in the aftermath that a lot of these people were informants. They were helping Hamas. These people were on the left, okay? So the point I'm trying to make is a lot of people on the left who, and it's not to say that the right, people on the right don't believe this, but the left are known for their, what you said, liberal values, humanity, reaching out to the other side. What happened though afterwards, and the biggest problem that Israel has now, is we so wanted peace for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years that a lot of people, because we believe in the good of humanity, we believe in good people, we believe in the good heart, we imposed our thinking on what we thought those people were thinking. Now, that's not to say that a lot of Gazans and Palestinians don't want peace. Maybe they do. But the statistics show that 75 to 85%, whether in the West Bank or Gaza, supported Hamas. In the aftermath of October 7th, support Hamas, and still support Hamas. And maybe now it's starting to change. But my point is, Amy, is that these people on the left have woken up, because they realize that you cannot make peace with people who don't want peace and who have a different ideology. Now, let's bring it back to America.
Right.
These students that we're seeing on these campuses are not the enemy. They're not the enemy. They're 18 to 22, 24-year-olds. They have been radicalized.
Yes, they have.
The Palestinians are not the enemy either. I mean, of course, radical Islam and anyone who supports Hamas, and you can see my T-shirt.
Yeah, hold that up.
I will.
That's a great T-shirt. Yes.
Where you can get it afterwards. I didn't make it. But what they do is these students have been radicalized. Their leaders here in America have been radicalized. It's not their fault either. But there is a movement from the Middle East that has been actively spreading hatred and intolerance against the Jewish people and Western civilization for a long time. And you saw it transpire here on 9/11, which these children were not even born then. The real enemy are those people who are pushing this narrative. Now, what can your community do about it? They can put public pressure on the leaders here in America to do something. not just the Republicans, but this conversation that we're having, these facts need to be expressed, because we're living in a world right now, and who, like you know this, Amy and Miriam, that facts don't matter anymore.
Right.
All you want is noise and emotion and pictures of dead people. Terrorism and radical Islamic ideology uses that as a tactic to make left-leaning people feel guilty about genocide, even if there isn't one,
Right.
apartheid, even if there isn't one,
Mm-hmm.
massacres perpetrated against the Palestinians, even if it's not massacres but war, where sometimes bad things happen, colonialism, where there is none happening. So with this rhetoric, Jews are now being singled out. And when that happens, it doesn't just mean that it can happen to other minorities in America. That's not the argument. Of course, it can happen to other minorities, but it means that human rights and values are being tossed out the window in your country. And then look at what happened in the Second World War. That's what happened. Now, it wasn't that Jews were singled out. Yes, Jews were singled out and there was a Holocaust. But think bigger than that. What was the Second World War? It was tens and tens and tens and tens of millions that died because people started small at the beginning, got swept up by hatred. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then by the time it was so big, people were afraid to speak out. We're on that precipice in America. The communists and the socialists here are buying into radical Islamic rhetoric. These people here want power. They want power. They want to stay in power. This is what you're seeing on the left. And I don't mean left Biden. I mean the super, super liberals who are so blinded by their own values that they can't see what's happening to them. This is happening even with members of my own family. I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli. They have bought into this propaganda that we are doing something wrong. Maybe
Wow.
people and maybe Israelis. Some. Now, they're not bad people. They're wonderful people. They're not anti-Semitic. But this woke world that we're living in means that these trigger words like genocide, if you are deemed an oppressor, the West will castigate you. They will. You are dead to me. If you are for genocide. So they say genocide. They make you believe there's a genocide, and then you can't go back and say, well, hold on, maybe that isn't a genocide because that would require some maturity. Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong about this.
Some critical thinking, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Critical thinking, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There's no critical thinking, and it's a tactic employed by the people who are inspiring the students, their leaders, people who are blinded, but it's coming from funding.
And we've seen that on campuses too, where there have been Jewish students who are led to believe that, like they're somehow responsible for that. It's absolute insanity. But then, how do you combat radicalization? How do you combat indoctrination? How is it just?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I was just saying, how do you combat that? Because it's so rampant. We're seeing it's the sheer numbers of these kids who have been, to me, it's brainwashing, who have been brainwashed to think something that is just simply not true is just astounding to me. I don't know how at this point we're trying, but then how do you get these people that say, well, it's free speech? How do you combat that in America?
I will tell you what I think. Respectfully, you keep doing what you're doing and you don't back down. You don't go with the flow. You don't, group thinking, herds, sheep. You see some of these films of these students. They don't know what they're demonstrating about. They don't know how to answer. They are just following. Now, you as a parent, that is the worst thing that you can do to your child. You have to teach them how to think independently based on fact. The most important thing I think that can happen is this awareness. Believe people who have integrity, believe people who are not lazy, who have done the work, believe people who are not just going for ratings, believe people who are able to have conversations and dialogue, and call them on the fact that they might not know things. Read books, study, go to different sources. Awareness is the first thing. Once you have awareness, the next thing is, okay, well, what are you going to do about it now? Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm speaking up. I'm on social media. I'm speaking to my friends in the real world. I'm speaking to colleagues on LinkedIn. I'm on a professional platform. I am posting about this stuff and jeopardizing my profession in doing so because, not much income right now. But to me, this is an existential fight, and that's what I'm doing. I'm speaking up. I try and think about it like this. If you were in the 1930s right now in Germany, what would you be doing?
Yeah.
People need to become aware, and they need to speak, and they have to be brave and to have courage. And that is what I'm trying to do. So to your viewers, I would say, what does that mean? That means putting aside your Costco visit where you're blinded by consumerism because this country is insane. In my markets in Israel, there's like maybe around 7 aisles, and maybe like 10 brands of cereals. There's a distraction, okay? But it happens slowly. This indoctrination, it happens behind the scenes, and then it explodes. It's exploding. Speak to your representatives, call them out on it, make them understand that this is not acceptable. If I look at what's happening in the United States of America, and I'm not an American, so I say this with respect and trying not to be patronizing. What do I know? But I don't understand when civil liberties are being absolutely trodden on and ignored, and there's a double standard.
For sure.
Then this could happen to anyone. Civil liberties need to be upheld. The FBI needs to be called in. What happened at Columbia University? It should have been shut down within a day. It's being accepted. It's being normalized. It cannot be, and that requires the voice of the people to speak up and to understand that every single individual here, every single person listening on your show right now, every single one has the power to make a difference. I started off, and Miriam and Amy, you know this, I started off with 10 followers. Now I have 100,000 followers. Now I have 150 million people who have seen my work. I'm a family guy. I have a small business. I have an amazing wife with 2 beautiful kids. I don't want to be doing this, but I'm doing it because it's important. It's coming to you. It's already here. You saw what happened on 9/11. That was nothing. When they have power, when these people who you're seeing behind the scenes have power, America will be lost.
And so here's what's frustrating to me about watching, the college campuses and particularly the Jewish students participating in these protests, which are psychotic. To Amy's point, it's very difficult for us, especially in the role that we have, to separate the politics from it, only because God bless all the people that you're talking about, the moderate liberals, the classic liberals, right? Who just believe in the goodness of humanity, and they always see the power of diversity and multiculturalism, where those of us on the right have been screaming about the warning signs for years, literal years, where we have been talking about the indoctrination on campuses, where they are a monolith. They're totally homogenous of 98% woke liberal professors. And then people are surprised at what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
We're not surprised.
Not surprised.
We're like, this is exactly what you get. And so we feel like our responsibility has been to tell people, vote accordingly, because when you vote for AOC and Rashida Tlaib and all of these psychopaths
and Ilhan Omar,
this is what you get. So for us, we cannot extricate the two. It's very difficult for us to take the politics out of it because we see the result.
I agree. I'm not saying take the politics out of it. It's just like in the explanation, I think in order for me to be able to get through to people, maybe on the left as well, or maybe on the right, awareness is the first thing. What you do with that, you have your decision to make. And I'm not an American, so I can't tell you who to vote for and anything. But the squad, these people, they're not liberal. They're not liberals. To me, they're socialists. They're communists. They don't believe in really. They don't believe
they're communists.
They believe in power. And I'm not just saying that because, and by the way, I just want to make one clarification. There are Jewish people who are confused, and there are Jewish people who are at these demonstrations with these mobs, but it's not the majority. The vast majority are Jewish people who are fighting. We're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for, if you have a student like Eli Tzivus, he's a student at UCLA. He's doing a phenomenal job on social media where he tries to get into the school, okay, and they block him. And if he raises his hand against them, he's going to be arrested. He can't go to class. He can't go to the library. He's a paying student. He's Jewish, and they're not letting him in
Unreal.
because here I have on this that proud of being Jewish Jew. He has a giant Star of David, a Magen David. They see that, they don't let him in. Where are the non-Jewish people who understand how bad this is? You are correct with what you said, Miriam, about not being able to separate the politics. I want to go back to, as an Israeli, the parallel. October the 8th, all of the liberal Israelis, and I'm a liberal, you know, I'm liberal. I'm not left, I'm center. I'm center right, sometimes center left, but I'm center.
Mm-hmm.
We now look at reality in the eyes, and that is the price that we paid. The price that we paid is the equivalent of 40,000 people not killed, but shot in the face so many times, objects inserted into sexual organs, baby ripped out and murdered in front of its mother while it was still in the stomach, burned alive, families tied and burned alive. This is what we faced. And now people have woken up that there is no one to speak to on the other side until this ideology or these people are the Hamas, not the Palestinians, Hamas is destroyed. Much in the same way, on a parallel, I feel that Americans, good Americans, must destroy through a different way. You're not at that point yet of massacres, you know, and hopefully you won't be, but you can destroy through voting. You can destroy through your voice. You can destroy through petitions. You can destroy through going to your leaders and saying, where are you? Why are you not doing what people in Miami did, you know, at colleges? And how are you letting this happen? Pain. There needs to be pain, not physical pain. Pain. You know, you need to make consequences. This is what we didn't do in Israel. People don't know that from 2005, and you know this, Israel left Gaza. There was no Israeli presence in Gaza. And I, as a family man, and this is how we met, since 2005, periodically, tens of thousands of rockets at Tel Aviv, at all over Israel, because we just kind of hoped that this would go away. All of those people on the left now had a wake-up call. Not only has it not gone away because we didn't deal with the extremists on that side, it's grown, it's emboldened them. That is the danger that you face. So only through activism will your audience be able to make a difference and to put pain on your leaders that they will feel, we are not happy, we want you to get involved, we want to make a change. Otherwise, America's going down the drain.
Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of people in America that feel the exact same way as what you just said. Like they think, well, this will go away. This is just this is just protests on college campuses. I feel like there are people that actually feel that way. And Miriam and I don't feel that way. Miriam and I know I can speak for Miriam when I say that we think that something will, it's inevitable that something will happen in America. And it's coming. They're here. It's coming. It's like we're bracing ourselves. There's a lot of people that feel that way in our community. People feel that way. And I feel like it's not until something like that does happen, something horrible again, that's like September 11th, where people will finally go, oh my God, okay, well, it's happened. Now maybe we should do something about it.
Let me ask you a question. Okay. I mean, I know you're interviewing me, but I'm going to ask you a question. What's worse?
Yeah.
5,000 Americans killed in a terrorist attack, or America over the course of the next 10 years, when there is no terrorist attack, falling and becoming a completely different country, opposed to the country that you believe in, because no one spoke up and there was no terrorist attack. People need to, okay, what's the answer to the question?
I agree. I don't even know. I don't know what's worse, but I think America falling it's disaster. We're watching it happen already on so many different levels. We're watching it happen already. And when I look at those college campuses, I think I'm watching it. I'm seeing it happen before my very eyes. I mean, we're both mothers, and it already is a completely different America than it was pre 9/11. in my opinion.
Yeah,
It is.
it's because we have
Just from what we've
Unfortunately,
seen.
that's right.
this
Yeah.
ideology. I'll give you an example of something I said to a family member who I love very much, who is a wonderful human being. All her values are in the right place. She's wonderful. And I was trying to get through to her. And I said to her, because I live in Israel, she lives in America. I said to her, what would you prefer? 100,000 dead Israelis, including potentially me and my family, killed in a war, or no Israel? And she couldn't answer the question. And she couldn't answer the question because, not because she wants no Israel, and because she was like, they're both as bad. And I'm like, they're not. 100,000 is not as bad as no Israel. It's not as bad as 9 million people, including 2 million Israeli Arabs, gone. It's the same as the Second World War. Imagine if at the beginning of the Second World War, we, as the free world, had quashed Hitler and his ideology and the people that followed him, and we nipped it in the bud, and 1 million people died as opposed to the amount of people that died. It's not even a question. So when good people can't answer that question, and they're Jewish and they're American and they're good people and they're family members, that's why I'm appealing to your audience. We, the collective we, not the Jewish people only, we need all hands on deck. This is an emergency and it's happening silently, but in your face, because everyone's watching it. Where are your people? That's what I'm imploring people to do. Only by pressuring your leaders, and if you want, by voting, but also at the community level, at the town level, at the city level, at the county level. Everyone needs to speak up. There's so much on the line, but I'm trying not to be dramatic, and I'm trying not to be sensationalist. And you guys know me, I'm a pretty down to earth guy. I don't want to be an influencer or a celebrity and saying all the right things to get people amped up. I have better things to do. It's bad. It's really, really bad.
Can I ask you something about end game stuff? Because here's what I worry about with what we've learned about Palestinians and what we've seen evidence of is that we've seen the polls, whatever, 75-80% of them are all like, yay, Hamas, they did the right thing on October 7th. And we know that they start teaching their itty bitty babies to hate Jews. We know this. So assuming that the goal, the stated goal of Netanyahu is to eradicate Hamas, how do you actually do that when it starts so young? How do you separate innocent Palestinians from their government? How do you do that?
Okay, so that's a great question. Remember, I'm not a politician. I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert like some people are. But at the human level, I'll tell you this. What you said is absolutely correct. You used the word Jews, which is very important. Arabs are the Muslims in the Middle East, for the most part. We're trying not to make generalizations, but for the most part, there's a shtick against the Jews that goes back hundreds and almost around 1,000 years. Okay, the Jews did not accept Islam in a time where religion was everything. So we have been hated for quite a while. There's also a lot of honor and tribalism in Arab Muslim culture. We now have Israel, which was determined by the UN in 1948. We didn't steal land. It was the world, It was accepted by the Jewish people who built the state. The partition plan was rejected by Arabs. There was war. We won, and we've been winning ever since. Great. I'm answering your question. Just takes a little bit of a thing. Now, the hatred is passed on from generation to generation by family members who are not moving on, and institutionalized hatred by leaders. The textbooks in Gaza and also sanctioned by the Palestinian Authority to a great extent don't show Israel on the map. It shows Palestine. Okay, so how will that change? Much like it did in Germany in the Second World War, you have to defeat the Nazis, right? And then you can deprogram, de-radicalize, re-educate with a concerted effort by the world, which is what happened in the Second World War, pretty much afterwards, over the course of decades. So what's going to need to happen is Israel and all free-thinking people who believe in Western values and Western civilization have to join us in this fight against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Qataris who have been funding this. Anyone, follow the money, follow the Nazis. Honestly, these people are a blend of jihadists and Nazis, and it's no accident that these guys were collaborating before the Second World War, and it's blown it up into what it is today. They need to be defeated. You cannot defeat an entire ideology. There are still Nazis in the world, but you can crush the leadership and you can make it much harder for them. Then Gaza needs to be, I believe, if Gaza remains in with the Palestinians, because Israel doesn't want Gaza at all, it needs to be a combination of countries and leadership with oversight to make sure that hatred and the education of hatred and the funding of hatred does not happen again. One last thing I'll say, Miriam. You've been saying, wow, look at those underground tunnels, right? You've been talking about the tunnels built under Gaza. Just so that your viewers get a sense. For almost 20 years, Hamas has received billions of dollars in funding, okay, to serve the Palestinian people. Now, they didn't just build tunnels. These tunnels are bigger than the entire London Underground. Can you imagine how much concrete, how much planning, how much construction, the workers, they knew, the people knew. This was something that was educated, planned hatred. And then when the missiles started flying from Israel, not the missiles, the rockets and the army came in, not immediately after October 7th, Hamas hid in these tunnels and purposely put those people, their people, outside of these tunnels to make this world movement against Israel that you're all seeing happen. It's not mind-boggling, guys. It's not unbelievable. It makes sense. It's very believable. It's happening. When people hate and are allowed to hate, this happens. When people are allowed to hate in the 30s, millions, tens upon tens upon tens of millions of innocent people will die. That is where we're headed. So the answer to your question in short is there needs to be a coalition of not armies, a coalition of people who are for freedom and tolerance, no matter what faith you're from, to coexist and to make things better. That's the only way. It cannot be Israel on its own. Everyone loses. Everyone loses. If Israel loses, everyone loses. The only people that will win are the people who want division and hatred and death. It's that simple. People need to understand that we're not lunatics. I'm a very grounded human being, and this is true. It's just, you can't imagine it happening, but it's happened before. It's starting to happen now. But I believe that we can wake up. I believe that your audience can make a difference.
Yeah, listen, education starts at home. And we firmly believe that. I do. My kid isn't taught a lot of this stuff in school. So it's my responsibility to teach her. It's my responsibility to teach all my children, my kid and my stepkids, all of these things that they're not taught on TikTok, that they're not taught, because TikTok's teaching them just the opposite. They're teaching them to be freaking Nazis. So, it's my responsibility to teach my children all the things that you just said, everything that you just said. And I think it's everybody's responsibility to do that, because the mainstream media is not going to do it. Social media is not going to do it. It's our responsibility as good humans to teach our children these things, and then to give them the critical thinking skills to say, question everything that you are fed in life, from all these different sources, because it's probably a safe bet that a lot of it's a lie at this point. And a lot of it is, especially in America, it's disgusting what American media puts out there. We just talked this morning about like CBS they put garbage out there. A lot of our mainstream media is just garbage. And so we have to combat that too. And so
It's raining.
I mean,
It's a
it's
tall
an
order.
uphill. Yeah, it's an uphill
It's raining.
battle.
Yeah, listen, I'm not very popular right now.
It is.
But I'm not interested in ratings. I'm interested in my children exactly like you are, Amy. And this thing here, this thing is something that is very dangerous if parents don't monitor. Yes, you can say that you can monitor. That's not a bad thing. That's what my parents did with me. They monitored how much TV time, who I was hanging out with, so that I would grow up to be, hopefully a decent and kind individual. And I wouldn't let them be hijacked by misinformation and quite frankly, evil. TikTok to me is evil.
Right.
I did a LinkedIn post about this where I challenged one of the senior directors, and you should check out my LinkedIn for that comment. And I went on TikTok recently to monitor, and I put up a post where I don't think that you've felt any hate from me, right? I put out a very rational thing.
Oh my gosh, no.
I have gotten a slew of hatred, which is just that's what they want.
That's the
Fuel
point.
the anger.
Mind-boggling. Yeah.
But not mind-boggling. Stop saying mind. It's not mind-boggling. It makes complete sense. It makes complete
And well,
sense.
I guess on some of these social medias, I guess it does, because we get it too. We get death threats and all that kind of stuff too.
That's
So
it.
I mean, you're right. It shouldn't be. It's not mind-boggling. It's just at this point, it's probably just part of. It's just part of the game, right?
And you can fight it, and people can fight it. People can make a difference. I know I'm harping on about it, but
right.
I really hope that people take what a lot of what people like myself are doing, and these brave individuals going to these demonstrations are doing to try and save your way of life and your viewers' way of life and my way of life as we know it, because it's silent, it happens slowly, and then one day you wake up and it's gone. One day you wake up and you don't have that freedom. You can't go to your class because you're wearing a Star of David. You can't vote for the person that you want to because those people in power shut that person down. It happened with Hitler. Hitler took over. He became a dictator. It wasn't a dictatorship before.
Yeah.
People can make a difference if they speak up. Everyone needs to speak up. Everyone.
And listen, I look at it this way. I'm a Christian, and I think, and I will say to people, you think it stops at the Jews? I mean, it's these people don't have any tolerance for Christians either. So, I mean, it's like, this is how I feel in a free America. At some point, it's like, I may wake up and because I'm wearing a cross, they're not going to have any tolerance for me. So it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop with Jews. I mean, I really don't think it does with these people. So that's how I feel about it.
No, I couldn't agree more. And let's bring it to Muslims. How many Muslims have died that have nothing to do with Israel? 500,000 people in Syria, nothing to do with Israel. 450,000 people in Yemen, radicals, nothing to do with Israel. When there is intolerance and hatred, all these students that are protesting don't know that. Where were they? They're complaining about 30,000 killed in a war, which is not even 30,000 because the numbers are being fabricated. It's more like 11, 12,000 combatants, 12,000 people, okay? Compared to 500,000 people in Syria, compared to what's happening right now in many places in the world. That's the thing that happens when people lose the ability to think, like you said, Miriam, lose the ability to question. They are just being told what to say and not being educated to challenge. Challenge me on anything you want. And if I'm wrong, I'll say that I'm wrong.
Oh my gosh. Some of those Ivy League kids couldn't find Syria on a map.
No.
Well, and so many of them, and maybe you can actually help explain for the audience too, because so many of the signs and the protesters are screaming, death to America, death to Israel, all that. And they're so focused on Zionists. And as far as I can tell, Zionism is simply believing that Israel should exist. And so I don't understand how there is so much hatred and vitriol against people who claim that that's all they want is for Israel to exist in peace. If that makes me a Zionist, I'm happy to own the label. I don't understand why it's become so objectionable.
Anyone who believes in a two-state solution is a Zionist. Why? Because you believe in the right for, you want a Palestinian state living side by side with Israel. Israel, that's the indigenous homeland of the Jewish people, and
Mhm.
it is where the Jewish people belong. That makes you a Zionist.
My
If
God.
if
I
you
own
are
it.
Yeah, me too. Uh-huh.
so that's what a Zionist. So I'm a Zionist. I'm a proud Zionist. I'm an Israeli. If I'm an Israeli, I'm a Zionist. You have
Mhm.
2 million Arabs who live with full equal rights in Israel. Who are, I was in hospital 4 years ago because of the last Hamas war. I was hospitalized from exhaustion, and because I was just fighting the fight, and I had 7 doctors because I was hospitalized for 10 days. 4 of them were Arabs. We had in the last government, we had a Muslim party in our. We have the head of the Supreme Court, an Arab. These people are Zionists because they live in Israel and they believe in the state being the state of the Jewish people. That's what a Zionist is.
Mhm.
Anyone who wants Israel destroyed and gone, that's not a Zionist.
And
Yeah.
that's genocide.
And
So all the protesters who are like, free Palestine and the genocide, I'm like, you're calling for it. How do you not
Exactly.
get that?
Yeah.
Well, I think it takes people like you to talk sense and for other people to hear what we're saying, and then not to take our word for it, to then go and look up what Zionism is. Not what
Mhm.
it's like, not what other people, non-Jews, not what other people say Zionism is, what the Jewish people say that Zionism is. What it's like me telling a black person or me telling an Asian person what their definition of black racism is, of Asian
Mhm.
hatred is. No, let them say it, and I will listen. I will learn from them. It's like you have these panels to talk about anti-Semitism that consist of 4 speakers who are bona fide anti-Semites. No, it happens all the time. So
Mhm.
don't take my word for it. Do your research and find out. That is such an excellent point, Miriam, because people don't know what Zionism is.
Mhm.
Our narrative is being hijacked because they
Yeah.
have the numbers, they have the funding, and they have the stupid non-critical thinkers with parents that don't know what to do guiding them. So it's
Mhm.
on us to rise up to the occasion and lead and believe in ourselves that we can do it. I think that what you guys are doing, even though our politics might differ, we have a common ground. We believe in the goodness and the kindness of people. We believe in tolerance. We believe in education. We believe in critical thinking, which is critical. We
Yep.
believe in all of these things. And when you believe in those things, then you can figure out the other differences.
Mhm.
That's what I
Yeah.
believe. That's why I reached out to you because you have the bravery and the conviction to speak up on those things, and I believe in that. Even with people I don't agree with 100%, with that I believe, and I believe that everyone has the ability to do that.
Yeah, we'll never stop talking about it. We'll
We
never
won't.
stop. Mm-mm.
Absolutely not. And
Yeah.
we'll continue to be fighting on behalf of Israel's right to exist and
Yep.
against all of these psychotic protesters. And we're so glad to be able to share our platform with you to hopefully reach more people with that message, because you're right. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody has to stand up and push back against all this nonsense. And we were so glad to see your face and to give
Yeah.
you this time with us and with our audience. And you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it. I love you guys.
Yeah.
I love Robbie. Sorry, Amy. Sorry, Amy. You got a couple of songs. Couple of songs. Send her a couple of
I'm
songs.
gonna send you. Listen, I'm sending you some Led Zeppelin. Okay.
Led
I'm
Zeppelin.
gonna send you some real rock and roll. All right.
He's a pop
Okay.
star. He's got rock and roll.
So before we head out, tell us where everybody can find you, all the socials, every place that they can find you and find out more about you.
Sure. Well, first of all, on Instagram, I have 2 accounts. Eitan Chatayat _words. It's my first and last name _words. not the other one. That's my private account. On X, it's just Eitan Chatayat, one word. On Facebook, I have a Facebook page because I believe in, even though it skews older there, let's speak to the older people who can make a difference with children. Eitan Chatayat _words. And and you can follow me on LinkedIn, Eitan Chatayat. I mean, I wouldn't request a connection, but you can follow me. And I'm on TikTok, but I don't want to promote it. I'm really there to monitor, and I might actually cancel my account. I just went on 2 weeks ago, and it's awful. So did I miss anything? I think that I did, but Instagram and X and Facebook, I think are the places. Oh, and there's also a YouTube channel. Again, it's just look for Eitan Chatayat on YouTube, and yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome.
Okay,
Great.
perfect. Thank
so
you.
great to see you.